Lena lived in a small, crowded neighborhood where everyone knew each other. Her days were filled with simple routines, running errands for her mother, helping her younger brother with homework, and working part-time at a local cafe. Lena had always been known for her courage, even among friends who often teased her for being too bold or too reckless. She never thought of herself as special. She just saw danger and believed it needed to be faced, not ignored. One late afternoon, Lena decided to take a walk through the park near her home. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the trees. Children were playing, joggers ran along the paths, and couples strolled hand in hand. Lena loved these quiet moments. They gave her a sense of peace she rarely felt at home. As she wandered near a small bridge over a shallow stream, she heard a sudden cry. It was sharp, urgent, and full of fear. Without thinking, she ran toward the sound. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from a strange sense of purpose. When she reached the edge of the bridge, she saw a boy struggling in the water below. He was dressed in expensive clothes, soaked and gasping for air. It was clear he couldn't swim. Lena didn't hesitate. She quickly removed her jacket and leaned over the bridge, reaching out to grab him. The boy flailed, panic-stricken, but Lena held on tightly, pulling him toward the edge. The ground was slippery and she almost lost her balance. But with one final effort, she managed to drag him onto solid ground. Both of them were breathing hard, water dripping from his hair and clothes. "Are you okay?" Lena asked, keeping her voice calm despite the adrenaline rushing through her. The boy coughed and nodded, shaking from the shock. Thank you," he stammered. I didn't know what would happen." Lena helped him stand, checking for injuries. Apart from a few scratches and a lot of wet clothes, he seemed fine. But she noticed the way he looked at her, a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "I'm Lena," she said softly. "I'm Ethan," he replied, still trying to catch his breath. Ethan didn't explain how he ended up in the water, and Lena didn't ask. There was something about his presence that felt different, almost unreal. He was polite, yet unfamiliar with the kind of life Lena knew. She realized he came from a world very different from hers, one filled with luxury she had never experienced. "I should get you some dry clothes," Lena said. "Come with me. My place is nearby." Ethan hesitated. Pride and unfamiliarity battled with his need for help. But in the end, he followed her. As they walked through the narrow streets, Lena noticed the stark contrast between her world and his. Ethan's shoes were expensive. His watch gleamed in the fading sunlight, and his suit was soaked but clearly made of fine material. Yet he walked carefully, almost unsurely, as if the simple streets were unfamiliar territory. When they reached Lena's modest home, her mother was startled to see a stranger drenched in her living room. Lena quickly explained the situation. Ethan thanked her again, embarrassed by the attention. Lena's mother, practical and kind, offered him a towel and something warm to drink. Lena noticed that Ethan was polite but reserved, clearly uncomfortable with being in such a simple home. Over cups of tea, Ethan told her a little about himself. He was the only child of a wealthy businessman, living a life of privilege but also strict rules. He rarely got a chance to explore the world on his own. Today, he had wandered off during a family outing, and a sudden accident had left him in the stream. Lena listened quietly, nodding, offering comfort without judgment. Despite the differences in their worlds, a connection began to form. Ethan admired Lena's courage and her calm in a dangerous situation. Lena, on the other hand, saw the vulnerability behind Ethan's polished exterior. He wasn't arrogant or spoiled. He was just a young man unprepared for the real world outside his protected bubble. The evening passed quickly. Ethan's clothes were dried, and Lena's mother prepared a simple meal for both of them. There was laughter, stories shared, and a growing sense of mutual respect. Ethan realized that Lena's bravery wasn't about seeking attention or reward. It was natural for her. She helped because it was the right thing to do. Just as they were finishing their meal, Ethan's phone rang. It was his father. Panic and relief flashed across his face. He apologized to Lena and her family, explaining he had to leave immediately. Lena watched as he spoke, realizing that his life was filled with pressures she could barely imagine. Before leaving, Ethan turned to Lena. "I don't know how to thank you," he said earnestly. "You saved my life. I will never forget this." "You don't have to," Lena replied with a small smile. "Just take care of yourself. That's enough." Ethan hesitated, then said, "I hope I see you again." Lena nodded, unsure what to say. She didn't know if their paths would cross again, but something inside her told her this moment would stay with her forever. As Ethan left, Lena felt a mixture of pride, relief, and curiosity. She had always faced challenges, but today was different. Today, her courage had truly mattered in a life-or-death situation. It wasn't about proving herself. It was about saving someone else. And that feeling, that sense of purpose, was unforgettable. The next few days brought unexpected attention. News of a young woman rescuing a wealthy businessman's son spread quickly. Lena found herself receiving calls from reporters, strangers on social media, and even local officials. Some offered rewards, some praised her bravery, but Lena remained humble. She didn't do it for fame. She just acted instinctively, without thinking of consequences. Ethan's family insisted on personally thanking her. Invitations to their mansion arrived, along with gifts and offers she had never imagined. Lena felt overwhelmed. Her world was small, familiar, and safe in its simplicity. Suddenly stepping into a world of wealth and luxury was daunting. But despite the shock, she remained grounded. She was Lena, brave and practical, not someone who could be easily dazzled by money. When she finally met Ethan again, it was at his family's mansion. The place was enormous, with polished floors, sparkling chandeliers, and rooms filled with art and antiques. Lena felt out of place, but Ethan greeted her warmly, without pretension. He was genuinely happy to see her. "Thank you again," Ethan said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." "You did what you could," Lena replied. "I just happened to be there." They spent the day together, walking through the gardens, talking and laughing. Lena noticed Ethan's curiosity about her life, his questions sincere, not judgmental. In turn, she saw glimpses of his world. Not the wealth, but the loneliness, the pressure, and the constant expectations. It was clear that his life, though luxurious, was not easy. By the time Lena returned home, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride in her actions, curiosity about Ethan's world, and a sense of uncertainty about what the future held. She didn't know if she would ever fully fit into his world or if he would truly understand hers, but she knew one thing for certain. Their encounter had changed both their lives in ways neither could yet comprehend. That night, as Lena lay in bed, she thought about the stream, the sudden danger, and the boy she had saved. She realized that courage was not about strength or skill. It was about choice. She had chosen to act, and that choice had ripple effects far beyond what she could see. And deep inside, she wondered if this was just the beginning of a story far bigger than herself, one that would challenge her in ways she had never imagined. After the initial rescue, Lena's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The news of her bravery had spread quickly. Friends and neighbors talked about her as if she were a hero, while strangers sent messages of admiration online. Despite the attention, Lena stayed humble. She returned to her regular life, working at the cafe, helping her family, and going about her daily routines. But something inside her felt different. The encounter with Ethan had opened a door to a world she had only seen from a distance. One afternoon, a limousine pulled up outside her home. Lena's mother, surprised and slightly anxious, stepped forward as a well-dressed man stepped out and introduced himself as Ethan's father. He was polite but carried an air of authority and expectation. He explained that Ethan wanted to meet Lena again, not just to thank her, but because he felt there was a connection worth exploring. Lena, though nervous, agreed. The next day, Lena found herself stepping into a world she had only ever dreamed of. Ethan's mansion was enormous, with gardens that seemed to stretch endlessly and fountains that sparkled in the sunlight. Servants moved quietly, attending to every need. Lena felt overwhelmed but kept her composure. She reminded herself that she was there as Lena, not as someone who needed to impress anyone. Ethan greeted her with a smile, genuine and warm. "I'm really glad you came," he said. Lena smiled back, feeling slightly more comfortable. They spent the day walking through the gardens, talking about everything and nothing. Lena was curious about Ethan's life, but also cautious. She didn't want to be swept away by the glamour and forget who she really was. As the day went on, Ethan shared stories of his life. Despite the wealth, he spoke of loneliness and the pressure to meet expectations. Lena listened carefully, realizing that money and luxury did not equate to happiness. She shared her own life, the struggles of her family, the joy she found in simple moments, and her own dreams and fears. Ethan was genuinely interested, asking questions and listening without judgment. By the evening, Lena felt a strange sense of comfort. She was in a place of wealth and privilege, yet she felt more at ease than she had expected. Ethan had a way of making her feel like an equal, not someone who was being honored or rewarded for an act of bravery. It was clear he respected her for who she was, not for what she had done. After dinner, they sat in a quiet corner of the mansion, the lights dimmed and the air filled with a gentle calm. Ethan looked at Lena seriously. "I don't want this to be just a thank you. I feel like we've met for a reason. You see things in ways I've never noticed before. You're brave, honest, and real. I want to know more about you." Lena felt a mix of emotions. She was flattered but cautious. She had never been part of a world like this, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to step fully into it. Yet there was a curiosity and a connection she couldn't ignore. "I appreciate that," she said softly. I want to stay true to who I am. I don't want to be someone I'm not." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I don't want to change you. I just want to be part of your world too, even if only a little." In the days that followed, Lena and Ethan spent more time together. He would call her, sometimes asking about her day, other times sharing small details about his life that he had never mentioned to anyone else. They began to trust each other, their conversations deepening beyond the surface. Lena saw a side of Ethan that most people never did, a young man who was kind, thoughtful, and genuinely curious about the world beyond wealth. Lena also began to notice subtle tensions in Ethan's world. There were hints of family politics, the way servants moved nervously, the guarded expressions of people around him. She realized that life in such luxury came with its own challenges and pressures, but she also saw opportunities to help Ethan see the world in a more human way, beyond appearances and expectations. One evening, Ethan invited Lena to a family gathering. Lena felt nervous but accepted. The event was lavish, filled with important guests and sparkling conversation. Lena remained grounded, observing quietly and engaging politely. She noticed how out of place she felt, but also how Ethan's presence made her feel accepted. For the first time, she realized that courage wasn't just about saving someone physically. It was also about navigating new experiences, standing firm in unfamiliar situations and staying true to oneself. During the gathering, a conversation between Ethan's parents hinted at the expectations placed on him, and Lena saw the weight he carried. She gently reminded him that he didn't have to carry everything alone and that sometimes being true to oneself mattered more than meeting expectations. Ethan listened carefully, appreciating her insight and wisdom. Her words were simple but meaningful, something that wealth and power could never provide. Over time, Lena and Ethan grew closer. They shared walks in the gardens, quiet afternoons talking about dreams, and moments of laughter that felt genuine. Lena began to understand that Ethan's admiration for her bravery wasn't just about the rescue. It was about the way she lived her life, with honesty and integrity. And Ethan's openness and kindness made Lena feel valued and respected in a way she hadn't experienced before. However, not everything was easy. Lena began to sense the subtle pressures around Ethan, people watching, judging, and sometimes testing her. She faced moments of doubt and uncertainty, wondering if she could truly fit into his world without losing herself. But she remained steadfast, reminding herself that bravery wasn't just about physical acts, it was about making the right choices, even when they were difficult. One afternoon, Ethan took Lena to a quiet spot in the mansion's garden, away from the hustle and expectations of the household. He looked at her earnestly. "I know this world can be overwhelming. I know it's not simple, but I want you to know that I value you, not for what you did, but for who you are. You've taught me more about life in these few days than I've learned in years." Lena felt a warmth in her chest. It wasn't admiration or flattery. It was genuine respect and connection. She realized that despite their different worlds, they had found common ground in honesty, courage, and understanding. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Lena understood that her life had changed. She had stepped into a world of wealth and privilege, but more importantly, she had formed a bond that challenged both her and Ethan to grow. It wasn't about money or status, it was about seeing each other as equals, valuing courage, honesty, and human connection above all else. That evening, Lena returned home with a sense of reflection and hope. She knew the coming days would bring new challenges, new experiences, and perhaps unexpected twists. But she also knew that she had the strength and wisdom to face them, just as she had faced the stream that day. Courage, she realized, wasn't just about saving someone, it was about living truthfully, standing firm in your beliefs and embracing the unknown with an open heart. And as she drifted off to sleep, Lena couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead, knowing that her life and Ethan's had been forever changed by a single, brave act. Days passed after Lena and Ethan spent time together at the mansion, and life seemed to be settling into an unusual rhythm. Lena had returned to her daily routine, helping her mother with chores, working at the cafe, and spending evenings reflecting on her encounters with Ethan. She felt a mixture of excitement and caution. Her friendship with Ethan was growing, but she was beginning to realize that stepping into his world came with unexpected challenges. One morning, as Lena was walking to work, she noticed a group of people watching her closely. They whispered among themselves, taking notes and occasionally glancing her way. Lena felt a chill run down her spine. She had expected attention after the rescue, but this felt different, more calculated, more intense. Something about the way they observed her made her uneasy. Later that day, she received a call from Ethan. He sounded concerned. "Lena, are you okay? I've noticed some unusual activity around you. Can you meet me?" She agreed, and they met at a quiet cafe away from prying eyes. Ethan looked serious, his usual calm demeanor replaced with tension. "I don't know who these people are, but they seem to be watching you closely. I want to make sure you're safe." Lena nodded, a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. She had faced danger before, but this felt different. It wasn't a sudden accident or an immediate threat. It was slow, creeping, and unseen. "I'll be careful," she promised, though the unease lingered. Over the next few days, Lena began noticing more unusual things. Strangers seemed to appear at her favorite spots, following her from a distance. Phone calls came from unknown numbers, and messages hinted at her connection to Ethan. She realized that her life, which had been simple and predictable, was now under scrutiny because of the rescue, and the attention was not all friendly. One afternoon, as she was leaving the cafe, a car pulled up and a man stepped out. He introduced himself as a representative of Ethan's family, but his tone was rigid and formal. He told Lena that there were concerns about her presence in Ethan's life. Certain members of the family were wary of someone outside their circle, someone who could influence Ethan in ways they didn't approve of. Lena felt a mix of frustration and fear. She hadn't done anything wrong, yet suddenly she was being treated with suspicion. Ethan arrived just as the man finished speaking. He looked at Lena with concern and then turned to the representative. "She's my friend. She's trustworthy. You have nothing to worry about." The man hesitated but left, leaving Ethan and Lena alone. Ethan reached for her hand. "I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I didn't anticipate it, but I want you to know I trust you completely." Lena squeezed his hand, feeling a surge of warmth. His trust gave her strength, but she couldn't ignore the tension around them. It was clear that the world Ethan lived in was far more complicated than she had imagined. That evening, Lena returned home, only to find a letter slipped under her door. The handwriting was unfamiliar, the words vague but threatening. It suggested that her connection with Ethan was being watched and that any misstep could have serious consequences. Lena's heart raced. She had never felt so vulnerable, but she also felt a spark of determination. She wouldn't let fear control her. She had faced danger before, and she would face it again. The next day, she met Ethan at the mansion. He had noticed the tension in her eyes and immediately asked what had happened. Lena showed him the letter, and his expression hardened. "This is serious. We need to be careful. I'll make sure you're protected." Together, they began to plan. They kept their meetings discreet, avoided public places, and stayed alert. Lena realized that her bravery wasn't just about physical acts anymore. It was about intelligence, caution, and strategy. She had to navigate a world of subtle threats and hidden agendas. Despite the tension, their bond grew stronger. They shared long conversations about life, trust, and values. Ethan admired Lena's ability to remain grounded despite the pressure, and Lena appreciated Ethan's willingness to listen and learn from her perspective. Their friendship became a source of strength for both of them, a safe space amidst the chaos. One evening, Lena decided to confront the fear that had been building inside her. She suggested a walk through a quiet part of the city, away from the mansion and the attention it brought. Ethan agreed, and they walked side by side, the streets almost empty as night fell. Lena spoke openly about her fears, the letter, and the strange surveillance she had noticed. Ethan listened, holding her hand, offering reassurance. "We'll face this together," he said. "I won't let anyone hurt you. You saved my life once. Now it's my turn to make sure you're safe." Lena felt a wave of relief. For the first time, she realized that bravery could also mean trusting someone else, allowing them to protect you without feeling weak. It was a lesson she had never learned before. But just as they were beginning to feel a sense of control, an unexpected event shook their world. A misunderstanding arose, fueled by rumors and misinformation. Lena was accused of being part of a scheme, of taking advantage of her connection with Ethan. The accusation spread quickly, causing tension within Ethan's family and among people who had previously admired her. Lena was shocked. She had never imagined that a simple act of bravery could lead to such complications. She tried to explain, to show that she had done nothing wrong, but the weight of suspicion was heavy. Ethan, however, did not hesitate. He defended her, standing firmly against those who doubted her integrity. "She's honest, brave, and trustworthy. I will not allow anyone to tarnish her reputation." With Ethan's support, Lena faced the situation head-on. She gathered evidence, spoke to those involved, and gradually began to clear the misunderstandings. It was exhausting and stressful, but she refused to back down. Her courage, which had once been about physical action, now manifested in her determination to protect her own truth. During this time, Lena and Ethan's relationship deepened. They learned to rely on each other, to communicate openly, and to face challenges as a team. The external threats and misunderstandings tested their trust but also strengthened it. Lena realized that bravery was not only about saving someone's life. It was about standing firm in the face of doubt, fear, and injustice. By the end of the week, the situation had calmed. Lena's name was cleared, the threat subsided, and Ethan's family began to see her in a new light. She had proven herself not only through courage, but through intelligence, patience, and resilience. The experience left her stronger, more confident, and even more determined to stay true to herself. As Lena walked home that evening, she reflected on how much her life had changed. She had saved a life, stepped into a world of wealth and privilege, faced hidden threats, and emerged with her integrity intact. The challenges had been unexpected, but they had also revealed her strength, courage, and ability to adapt. She knew that the story was far from over. Life with Ethan would continue to bring surprises, challenges, and lessons. But Lena felt ready. She had faced danger, suspicion, and pressure, and she had not faltered. And in her heart, she knew that no matter what happened next, she would continue to act with bravery, intelligence, and honesty, ready to face whatever life had in store. Life began to settle into a cautious normalcy for Lena, but she knew it was fragile. The past weeks had tested her in ways she had never imagined, from the rescue itself to the misunderstandings and subtle threats that followed. She had grown stronger and more aware of her own courage, but she also realized that her connection with Ethan came with complications she couldn't ignore. Ethan had been a constant presence in her life. Their friendship had deepened, and they spent more time together, both in public and in private spaces away from prying eyes. Ethan was attentive, respectful, and genuinely interested in Lena's perspective on life. He asked questions about her experiences, her family, and her hopes for the future. Lena, in turn, shared her thoughts and feelings honestly, building a bond that felt rare and profound. However, the attention that came with Ethan's world was relentless. Even as they enjoyed quiet moments together, Lena noticed the subtle ways in which she was being watched. People whispered, observed, and sometimes tested her. It was clear that her place in Ethan's life was being questioned by those who held influence over him. Lena felt the pressure but refused to let it shake her. She had faced danger before, and she knew that standing firm in her integrity was just as important as physical courage. One afternoon, Lena received an unexpected invitation. It was from a charitable organization sponsored by Ethan's family. They wanted her to attend a meeting and provide input on a community project. Lena hesitated, feeling out of place in the world of high-level philanthropy and wealthy donors. But Ethan encouraged her, assuring her that her perspective mattered. He valued her honesty and practical insights, not just her bravery. The meeting was intimidating at first. Lena was surrounded by people in tailored suits and polished shoes, discussing budgets, projects, and strategies she had never encountered. Yet she held her ground. She asked questions, shared her observations from her own community, and suggested practical solutions that surprised many of the attendees. Her insights were genuine, grounded in real-life experience rather than theory. Slowly, she noticed heads nodding, respect growing where skepticism had once existed. Ethan watched her with admiration. He saw the courage it took for her to speak up in an unfamiliar environment, and the intelligence with which she handled herself. For Lena, it was a reminder that bravery wasn't limited to dramatic rescues. It could also be found in quiet confidence, honesty, and the courage to voice one's perspective, even in the face of doubt. Despite the small victories, Lena couldn't ignore the challenges she faced outside the mansion. The scrutiny, subtle pressure, and occasional hostility from those around Ethan weighed on her. There were times when she wondered if her life had been simpler before all of this, but each challenge also taught her resilience and patience. She began to understand that her actions had consequences beyond the immediate moment, and that courage sometimes meant navigating complex social landscapes. At home, Lena reflected on how much her life had changed. She had started as a simple young woman from a modest neighborhood, and now she was engaged in situations that required diplomacy, intelligence, and emotional strength. She realized that growth often came with discomfort, and that facing new experiences head-on was essential for personal development. Meanwhile, Ethan was also undergoing a transformation. Through Lena, he began to see the limitations of his own sheltered life. He had grown accustomed to privilege and isolation, but Lena's perspective showed him the value of empathy, humility, and courage. He realized that his world was full of wealth and opportunity, but it had lacked the grounding influence of genuine human connection. Lena's presence challenged him to think beyond appearances and expectations, to value authenticity above all else. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park away from the mansion, Ethan spoke openly about his reflections. "I've spent my life following rules, meeting expectations, and trying not to disappoint anyone. But being with you has shown me that life is more than wealth or appearances. It's about understanding, connection, and being true to oneself." Lena smiled softly. "That's something you can only learn by experiencing it, not by being told. We all have challenges, but it's how we face them that shapes who we are." Their conversation lingered in Lena's mind long after they parted ways that night. She realized that the connection they shared was not just about gratitude or admiration. It was about mutual growth. Each had brought the other lessons that were transformative, and both had become more self-aware and resilient as a result. However, the complexities of Ethan's world were never far away. Rumors continued to circulate and subtle tensions arose from unexpected quarters. Lena learned to navigate these situations with tact and patience, never compromising her values. She found herself becoming a bridge between Ethan and his world, offering insights, honesty, and courage when it was most needed. Through all this, Lena never lost sight of her own life. She continued to care for her family, work at the cafe, and engage with her community. These simple, grounding elements of her life reminded her of who she was and kept her connected to her roots. Even as she moved through new experiences, she understood that bravery and strength were meaningful only when balanced with humility and integrity. By the end of this period, Lena and Ethan had both grown in profound ways. Lena had learned to navigate a world of wealth, scrutiny, and subtle power dynamics without losing herself. Ethan had gained insight into courage, humility, and authentic human connection. Together, they had weathered misunderstandings, pressures, and challenges, emerging stronger and more aware. As Lena returned home one evening, she reflected on the journey so far. Her life had been irrevocably changed by a single act of bravery, but it had also been shaped by the ongoing choices she had made in response to new challenges. Courage, she realized, was not a one-time event. It was a continuous effort, a commitment to act with integrity, honesty, and resilience no matter the circumstances. And while the days ahead promised further challenges, Lena felt ready. She had faced danger, suspicion, and pressure, and had learned to navigate them with grace and strength. She knew that whatever happened next, she and Ethan would face it together, guided by the lessons they had learned and the bond they had forged. The weeks following Lena's deeper involvement in Ethan's world brought both growth and tension. Their bond had strengthened, But new challenges were emerging that neither of them had anticipated. Rumors, subtle pressures, and the ever-present scrutiny of those around Ethan made it clear that their lives were no longer just their own. Yet Lena remained grounded, determined to face everything with courage and clarity. One morning, Lena received a call from Ethan, urgency in his voice. "Something's happening. I need you to come quickly." She didn't hesitate and rushed to the mansion. When she arrived, she found Ethan tense and worried. He explained that someone had tried to manipulate a situation to create a rift between them. Misunderstandings were being spread, and certain members of his social circle had been planting doubts about Lena's intentions. Lena took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of determination. She had faced danger, threats, and suspicion before, and she knew that the best approach was to confront the problem calmly and intelligently. Ethan and Lena devised a plan to address the situation directly. They would gather evidence, clarify misunderstandings, and confront the individuals who were spreading false information. The process was exhausting and emotionally draining. Lena found herself explaining her intentions repeatedly, answering difficult questions and navigating complex social dynamics. But she refused to compromise her integrity. Her courage was not just about action. It was about staying true to herself even when others questioned her motives. During this period, Ethan proved to be a steadfast ally. He defended Lena openly, challenging those who doubted her. His support gave her strength, but he also learned from her calm, practical approach. Together, they tackled the situation with patience, intelligence, and honesty. Slowly, the truth came to light. The misunderstandings were cleared, and Lena's name was restored. Amidst the challenges, there were moments of quiet reflection. Lena and Ethan would escape to a secluded part of the mansion's gardens, away from prying eyes. They talked about their fears, hopes, and dreams. Ethan confessed that Lena had changed his perspective on life, teaching him the value of humility, courage, and genuine connection. Lena shared her own growth, realizing that bravery was about more than rescuing someone. It was about integrity, resilience, and facing life's complexities with confidence. One evening, an unexpected opportunity arose. Ethan's family was planning a philanthropic event to benefit the local community, and they wanted Lena to be part of the initiative. She was hesitant at first, unsure if she belonged in such a high-profile setting, but Ethan encouraged her, emphasizing that her insights and experiences were valuable. Lena agreed, seeing it as a chance to make a positive impact beyond her immediate life. The event was grand, with influential guests and media attention. Lena felt out of place at first, but reminded herself to stay grounded. She engaged with people, sharing practical ideas for community projects, and her contributions were recognized. Guests and organizers admired her authenticity and courage. Lena realized that she could navigate this new world without losing herself, that her bravery and intelligence could create meaningful change. After the event, Ethan and Lena walked through the gardens, reflecting on everything that had happened. "You've shown me so much," Ethan said, his voice filled with sincerity. "Not just courage, but strength, wisdom, and integrity. I've learned from you every day." Lena smiled softly. "And I've learned from you too. Life is complicated, and sometimes courage is quiet, sometimes loud, but it's always about doing what's right. We've both grown through this." As the days went on, Lena began to see the full impact of her journey. She had rescued a life, faced threats and misunderstandings, navigated a world of wealth and scrutiny, and emerged with her integrity intact. She had helped Ethan grow, and he had helped her see new dimensions of her own strength. Their bond had transformed both of them, creating a connection built on trust, respect, and genuine care. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to a steadier pace. Lena continued her work at the cafe, cared for her family, and stayed engaged with her community. She balanced her life between her humble beginnings and the complex world of Ethan's social circle. Through it all, she remained true to herself, never forgetting the lessons learned during the most challenging moments of her life. One afternoon, Ethan and Lena sat together in a quiet part of the mansion's gardens. They reflected on the journey they had shared, the obstacles they had overcome, and the growth they had experienced. Ethan turned to Lena, his eyes sincere. "I don't know where life will take us next, but I know that meeting you and being with you has changed everything for me. I feel stronger, more grounded, and more aware of what truly matters." Lena nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. And you've changed me too. I've learned that bravery isn't just about facing danger, it's about staying true to yourself, facing challenges with honesty, and trusting those who truly care about you. They sat in silence for a while, the quiet moment filled with understanding and shared respect. It was a moment of peace after the storms they had weathered together. Lena realized that life would continue to bring challenges, but she now had the strength, courage, and wisdom to face whatever came next. The final chapter of this journey was not about grand gestures or dramatic rescues. It was about transformation. Lena had grown into a young woman who understood the true meaning of bravery, integrity, and resilience. Ethan had grown into a more self-aware, empathetic individual who valued genuine connections over superficial expectations. Together, they had learned that life's challenges could bring growth, understanding, and deeper bonds if faced with courage and honesty. As Lena returned home that evening, she reflected on the journey that had begun with a single act of bravery. Her life had been irrevocably changed, but in the process, she had discovered her own strength, resilience, and ability to navigate complex situations without losing herself. She knew that whatever challenges awaited in the future, she and Ethan had created a foundation built on trust, respect, and genuine connection that would guide them through anything. And in the quiet of her room, as the sun set and the city lights began to sparkle, Lena understood the true essence of her journey. Courage was not a single act, but a way of living, a commitment to honesty, integrity, and facing life's uncertainties with strength and wisdom. She had rescued a life, faced trials, and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead with an open heart and unwavering spirit. After the events that had tested both Lena and Ethan, life began to settle into a quieter rhythm, but neither of them felt unchanged. The experiences had left marks on their hearts and minds, shaping the way they viewed themselves and the world. Lena returned to her daily routines with a newfound sense of confidence. She worked at the cafe, helped her family, and continued to engage with her community. But there was now an inner strength that everyone around her could sense. Ethan, too, had changed. He was more grounded, thoughtful, and aware of the importance of genuine connections. The lessons he had learned from Lena's courage and perspective influenced the way he interacted with his family, his friends, and even business matters. He had realized that wealth and privilege could not replace honesty, empathy, and integrity. One afternoon, Ethan invited Lena to a quiet spot overlooking the city. It was a simple place, away from the mansions and luxury where they could just be themselves. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink as the sun set, casting a warm glow over the buildings below. Lena felt calm and reflective, appreciating the quiet beauty and the sense of peace. "I've been thinking," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "All that happened changed more than just our lives. It made me see things differently. I understand now that I need to make choices that align with who I really am, not just what is expected of me." Lena nodded. "We all grow through challenges. Courage isn't only about big moments, it's about making the right choices even when it's difficult. You've learned to see beyond appearances and to value what truly matters." They sat in silence for a few moments, watching the city lights appear as the day turned into night. Lena realized that the journey they had shared was more than a story of rescue or misunderstanding. It was a journey of growth, trust, and mutual respect. Every challenge they had faced had strengthened their bond and taught them lessons that would stay with them forever. In the following weeks, Lena began receiving invitations to participate in community projects and charitable events. Initially, she felt hesitant, unsure if she could fit into such organized and formal settings. But each time she attended, she discovered that her experiences, insights, and courage were appreciated. She offered practical solutions and shared her perspective, which was rooted in real-life experience. People listened, respected her opinions, and even sought her advice for other projects. Through these experiences, Lena saw that her life had expanded in ways she had never imagined. The same courage that had driven her to save Ethan now guided her in new challenges, speaking up, standing firm, and leading by example. She had discovered that bravery and integrity were not limited to dramatic moments of danger. They were present in everyday decisions and in facing life with honesty and purpose. Ethan remained by her side throughout these changes, offering support and encouragement. He admired how she navigated, unfamiliar worlds without losing her sense of self. He had learned from her example that true strength was quiet, steady, and often invisible, but always impactful. Their friendship had grown into a partnership based on trust, understanding, and mutual admiration. One evening, as they walked together along a quiet street, Lena reflected on the contrast between her past life and the life she now experienced. She thought about the small home she had grown up in, the simple streets, and the people she had always known. And she thought about Ethan's world, luxury, expectations, and constant attention. Despite the differences, she had learned to find balance, appreciating the simplicity of her roots while embracing new experiences. Ethan noticed her thoughtful silence. "You seem lost in thought," he said gently. "I'm just thinking about how much has changed," Lena replied, "and how much I've learned about courage, trust, and making choices. Life has a way of testing you, but I've realized it's those tests that shape who you are." Ethan smiled. "And you've taught me more than you can imagine. Courage, honesty, and integrity. Things I didn't fully understand before knowing you. I feel stronger because of your example." They walked in comfortable silence, each lost in their own reflections. Lena realized that the bond they shared was more than friendship. It was a connection built on shared experiences, mutual growth, and unwavering trust. And though the world around them could be complicated and challenging, they had learned to face it together with courage and honesty. Over time, Lena began to take on leadership roles in community initiatives, inspired by the opportunities she had been given. She worked on projects that improved the lives of people in her neighborhood, organized events to support local causes, and mentored younger individuals who looked up to her. Each action reinforced her belief that courage and integrity were powerful tools for positive change. Ethan supported her in every way, not just as a friend, but as someone who respected her independence and her values. He learned to appreciate that helping someone didn't always mean giving them wealth or privileges. Sometimes it meant offering understanding, encouragement, and respect. Their partnership became a model of balance, where each could grow individually while supporting the other. One day, Lena received a letter from a young person in her community, expressing gratitude for her guidance and inspiration. The letter reminded her that her actions, even small ones, had a ripple effect. The bravery she had shown in saving Ethan had grown into a larger courage, one that influenced lives, inspired confidence, and encouraged others to act with integrity. Lena shared the letter with Ethan, who smiled warmly. "See what I mean? Your courage doesn't just affect us, it touches others too. You've made a difference in ways you might not even notice." Lena felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She realized that her journey had transformed her in ways that went far beyond the rescue. She had learned the importance of patience, resilience, and trust. She understood that true courage was not about seeking recognition, but about doing what was right and standing firm in the face of challenges. As the months went by, Lena and Ethan continued to grow both individually and together. They navigated the complexities of life, supported each other through challenges, and celebrated successes with humility and joy. Their bond had become a source of strength, a foundation upon which they could face any uncertainty. One quiet evening, Lena stood by her window, looking out at the city lights. She reflected on the journey that had begun with a single act of bravery. The rescue of Ethan had set off a chain of events that had tested her courage, challenged her integrity, and expanded her world. She had learned that true bravery was not only about facing immediate danger, but about navigating life with honesty, resilience, and empathy. Ethan joined her, standing silently beside her. They shared a quiet moment, the city lights reflecting the calm and growth they had experienced. Lena knew that their journey was ongoing, and that life would continue to bring challenges and surprises. But she also knew that with courage, trust, and integrity, they could face anything together. In that moment, Lena understood that her life had been forever changed, not just by the rescue, but by the growth, lessons, and connections that had followed. She had become stronger, wiser, and more confident. And she knew that the path ahead, no matter how uncertain, would be navigated with courage, honesty, and an unwavering commitment to being true to herself.